Three terms explain 80% of what's happening in AI right now: context window, RAG, and agent harness. If you want to build with AI, you need to know what these are. Most people don't. 20 minutes from now, you will, plus 40 more. Cluster 1, the model itself. When people say LLM, large language model, they mean the thing you're actually talking to. Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, all LLMs, is a program trained on a huge pile of text that predicts what word comes next over and over, fast enough that it looks like thinking. You'll also hear foundation model or frontier model. Don't overthink the distinction. Foundation model is the broader category. Frontier model is the marketing term for biggest, smartest ones currently available. Frontier just means current top of the line. Parameters. You'll see numbers like 70 billion parameters or 2 trillion parameters. Parameters are roughly the size of the model's brain. More parameters generally mean smarter and slower and more expensive to run. Generally, but it's not a clean rule anymore. A smaller reasoning model can sometimes beat a bigger non-reasoning one. Which brings us to reasoning models. Sometimes called thinking models, it's the same thing. These are models that pause before answering and work through the problem step by step in a hidden scratch pad you often don't see. They're slower but much better at math, code, and anything that needs actual logic. The trick is that they get smarter the longer you let them think. Open weights versus closed. Closed models like Claude and ChatGPT, you can only access through the company's API. Open weights like Llama, DeepSeek, or Queen, you can download and run yourself. People say open source for these, but it's usually not technically. The weights are public, but the training data and process usually aren't. Don't die on that hill, just know that the distinction exists. Multimodal. The model can handle more than just text. Images in, images out, sometimes audio, sometimes video. Almost every frontier model is multimodal now. When someone says it's multimodal, they are asking, can it see pictures? Inference, running the model to get an output, as opposed to training it. You'll see inference cost, inference time, inference provider. Whenever you use a model, you're doing inference. Companies like Grok, Cerebus, and Together AI are inference providers. They own the hardware and run open weight models for you faster or cheaper than the original lab. OpenRouter sits one layer above this. It's an aggregator that routes your call to whichever provider has the model that you want. So you only manage one API key. Cluster 2, talking to the model. Everything that happens between you and the model. Tokens. Models don't read words, they read tokens. And a token is roughly 3/4 of a word. Hello is 1 token. Anti-disestablishmentarianism is about 7. This matters because you get billed per token. Input tokens for what you send, output tokens for what comes back. Output is usually 3 to 5 times more expensive. When your API bill spikes, it's almost always because something got looped and generated too many output tokens. Context window. This is the single most important number in this entire video. The context window is how much text the model can hold in its head at once. Your prompt, the conversation, any documents that you've pasted in, all of it. Measured in tokens. The frontier models now sit at about 1 million tokens. That's roughly 5 novels worth of text. A few years ago, we were celebrating 4,000. The pace is wild. When your long conversation starts forgetting things from earlier, you've blown past the context window. When people ask how big is the context, that's what they mean. Stateless. This one trips everyone up because it feels a bit wrong. The model has no memory, none. Every time you send a message, the model is seeing the entire conversation for the first time. Your first message, every reply, every document, all of it shipped, fresh every single turn. The chat interface hides this from you. They're quietly resending the whole conversation behind the scenes so it feels continuous, but under the hood, the model itself never remembers anything. It just gets handed a transcript and reacts to it. This is the single most important concept for understanding everything that comes next. Memory features, RAG, agent harness, all of it exists because the model is stateless and we have to fake continuity from the outside. System prompt versus user prompt. The user prompt is what you type. The system prompt is hidden instructions that shape how the model behaves before you ever say anything. You are a helpful assistant, be concise, don't discuss X. Every chatbot you've ever used has one. When someone jailbreaks a chatbot, they're usually overriding the system prompt. Which brings us to prompt injection and jailbreaks. Prompt injection is when someone sneaks instructions into the content the model reads, whether it's a web page, a document, an email, that hijack what it does. Jailbreaks are when you trick the model into ignoring its safety rules, related but not identical. Both are real attack surfaces. If you're building anything that lets a model read untrusted text, you need to know they exist. Hallucination. When the model confidently makes something up, a fake citation, a function that doesn't exist, a quote nobody said, it's not lying, the model genuinely doesn't know it's wrong. Hallucinations are the single biggest reason you can't fully trust output without checking it. Streaming. When output appears token by token instead of all at once, it's why ChatGPT and Claude type their answers out in real time instead of dumping the whole response. Builders care because streaming changes the user experience completely. The perceived speed is way faster even when the total time is the same. Latency and throughput. Latency is how fast the first token comes back. Throughput is how many tokens per second after that. Both matter when you're picking a model for real use. A reasoning model has high latency. It thinks for ages before saying anything, but might have great throughput once it starts. A small model has low latency, maybe it fires immediately, but maybe fewer tokens per second. Pick based on what your use case needs. That's one model, one chat. Now, how does it know about your stuff? Cluster 3, memory and knowledge. This entire cluster exists because of statelessness. The model doesn't remember anything between conversations and doesn't know anything specific about your company, your code base, or your life. Everything here is a workaround. Memory. The user-facing feature where the model remembers facts about you across separate chats. You mentioned you have 2 kids, Sam and Alex. Next week, in a fresh conversation, it knows. Under the hood, it's not magic. The system saved a note and pulls it back into context when relevant. But the words you'll see in product UI and in tutorials is just memory. Short-term versus long-term memory. Short-term memory is the context window, what's in the chat right now. Long-term memory is what gets saved somewhere and pulled back in later. People conflate them constantly. Short-term lives and dies with that single conversation. Long-term survives across sessions. RAG, retrieval augmented generation, the single most used technique in production AI right now. Before the model answers your question, a system goes and retrieves relevant documents and stuffs them into the context window. So when you ask, what's our refund policy? And behind the scenes, it pulls the policy document, hands it to the model, and the model answers from that. Every chat with your documentation product is RAG. Most long-term memory features are basically RAG 2. For RAG to work, you need a way to find relevant documents fast, which means embeddings. An embedding is a numerical fingerprint of a piece of text. Run the cat sat on the map through an embedding model, and you get back a list of about 1,500 numbers. Run a feline rested on a rug through, and you get a different list. But mathematically similar to the first one, same meaning, similar fingerprint. That's the magic. Vector database, where you store all those fingerprints. So you've got Pinecone, Wavy8, Chroma, and one that launched yesterday. When a question comes in, you embed the question, then search the vector database for the closest fingerprints, which is semantic search. Searching by meaning instead of keywords. How do I cancel finds the document titled subscription termination process? Because the meaning matches even though no words actually overlap. Old search couldn't do that. Semantic search is what makes RAG actually useful. Chunking. You don't embed whole documents, they're too big. You break them into chunks of a few hundred words first, embed each chunk, then retrieve the relevant chunks. How you chunk dramatically affects how well RAG works. There are entire blog posts about chunking strategies, and it's more annoying than it sounds. Context engineering. This term replaced prompt engineering in 2025, and you'll see it everywhere now. Prompt engineering was about wording your one prompt cleverly. Context engineering is about everything that goes into the context window. The system prompt, the retrieved documents, the conversation history, the tool definitions, the examples, and managing it all so the model has exactly what it needs and nothing it doesn't. It's the actual job now. Context rot. What happens when the context window fills up with junk? Old terms, irrelevant retrieved docs, repeated tool outputs. Past a certain point, more context makes the model worse, not better. It starts losing focus, missing instructions, hallucinating. Managing context rot is half of what context engineering actually is. That's everything for one model with knowledge bolted on. Cluster 4, agents. This is the cluster that did not meaningfully exist 2 years ago, and it's where the entire industry is pointing. Start with the word itself, agent. A chatbot answers your question and stops. An agent takes a goal, makes a plan, takes actions, observes what happened, and keeps going until it's done. Book me a flight to Tokyo under $1,000. Chatbot tells you how to do it. An agent actually does it. That's the difference. An agent has agency, it loops. For an agent to take action, it needs tool use, also called function calling. This is the mechanism that lets an LLM do something other than just generate text. You give the model a list of tools, search the web, send an email, run this code, and the model can choose to call them. The model doesn't run the tool itself, it just outputs, I want to call this tool with these arguments. And your code actually runs it and feeds the result back. Tool use is the foundation of every agent that actually exists. Agent harness. This is the term that tripped me up 6 months ago. The harness is the code surrounding the model that turns it from a text predictor into an agent. It's the loop that takes the model's output, runs the tools, feeds the results back, manages the context, handles errors, decides when to stop. Claude Code is a harness. Cursor is a harness. Every agent product is essentially a harness wrapped around a model. When people argue about which agent is the best, they're really arguing about which harness is the best because the underlying models are very similar. Inside every harness is the agentic loop. Burn this into your brain. Read, think, act, observe, repeat. The agent reads the current state. It thinks about what to do next. It acts by calling a tool. It observes what came back. Then it loops. Every single AI agent that exists is doing some version of this. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. MCP, Model Context Protocol. Anthropic released it in late 2024, and it's eaten the entire industry. MCP is a standard for how agents connect to tools and data sources. Before MCP, every agent product had to build its own custom integration with every tool. With MCP, anyone can build an MCP server, a small program that exposes some capability over the protocol. And an agent that speaks MCP can use it. Linear's MCP server, GitHub's MCP server, Notion, Stripe. There's a whole directory now. The agent just connects and gets a list of those tools. Think of it as USB for AI agents. It's why Claude can do X announcements come out so quickly. Someone built an MCP server. Sub-agents and multi-agent. When one agent calls another agent as a tool, the main agent is doing some big task and spawns a specialist sub-agent for one part of it. Researching, writing, code review, they run in parallel, report back, the main agent continues. Multi-agent setups are the current frontier of trying to get more done in less time. Computer use and browser use. A specific kind of tool use where the agent's tool is the computer itself. The model literally takes screenshots, decides where to click, type, text, scrolls. Slow, expensive, and magical when it works. This is how agents handle apps that don't have APIs. Human in the loop. The pattern where the agent does most of the work but pauses at a key decision for a human to approve, edit, or reject. The opposite is fully autonomous, also called headless, where the agent just goes without checking in. For anything important, anything that spends money, sends a message to a customer, modifies production code, human in the loop is the responsible default. Pure autonomy is for low stakes work or for people who like rebuilding what their agent broke overnight. That's agents, the biggest cluster of all this, and you just got it. Real quick, if this is genuinely useful, hit subscribe. I make videos breaking down this stack every day. You stay current, I do the work of keeping up. Now, the words you'll see in every tutorial posted this week. Cluster 5, the builder stack. This is the operational vocabulary of actually shipping AI. Vibe coding, coined by Andrej Karpathy in early 2025, it's the practice of building software by describing what you want to an AI in natural language and letting it generate code without you reading or fully understanding it. You're coding by vibes. As the practice has grown, you'll hear the more serious structured version of this called agentic engineering. It's the same idea, but with proper context files, evaluations, and review loops bolted on. Some people think it's the future, some think it's a disaster waiting to happen. Both can be true. The point is the term exists and you'll hear it constantly. And if you're a non-technical founder watching this and thinking, great, more vocabulary, but I still can't actually ship anything, I'm building a community for exactly that. It's called Build It, Ship It. Non-technical founders building real products with AI, with a guide who's been shipping products for a decade. Want to build with AI? You're in. Idea is optional. It's coming soon. Link will be in the description below. Claude Code, Codex, Cursor, the three biggest AI coding environments right now. Claude Code is Anthropic's terminal-based agent. Codex is OpenAI's. Cursor is an AI-first code editor built on top of VS Code. You don't need to know everything about each, just recognize the names and that they're harnesses for coding agents. Skills. A skill is a folder of instructions and example code that teaches Claude how to do a specific task. Create a PowerPoint, fill in a PDF, run our deployment process. Claude reads the skill when relevant and follows it. It's how you encode your team's specific expertise so the model uses it constantly. Hooks. In Claude Code, hooks are scripts that run automatically at certain points. Before a tool runs, after a file change, when a session starts, they're how power users automate the boring parts of their workflow. Run my linter every time you edit a file, block edits to this directory, that kind of thing. Slash commands. Custom commands you trigger with a slash. Slash review, commit, deploy. You define them once, they show up forever. Most agentic environments now have them. Claude.md and context files. A markdown file in your project that the agent reads at the start of every session. Here's how this code base is structured. Here's the testing convention. Here's what you should never touch. It's how you give an agent persistent instructions specific to one project. Cursor has cursor rules. Codex has its own version. It's all the same idea. Subagents, specifically in the Claude Codex sense, pre-configured specialist agents you can invoke for specific tasks. A code reviewer, subagent, a test writer, subagent, a documentation subagent. Same agentic loop concept from Cluster 4, just packaged for everyday use. Artifacts. Claude's name for the standard load documents, code, or apps the model produces in a side panel rather than inline chat. You ask for a landing page, an artifact appears with the working page. You iterate on it. It's the chat versus document split that makes long outputs actually usable. Now, the operational stuff, the words you hit the moment you start actually building. API key, rate limits, quotas. Your API key is the password to call the model. Rate limit caps how many requests or tokens you can use per minute. Quotas cap how much you can use per day or month. Hit any of these and your app stops working. Every builder fights these in week 1. Prompt caching, the single biggest cost saver if you're building anything serious. If you're sending the same long context, a system prompt, a big document, a knowledge base across many cores, prompt caching lets you pay full price once and a fraction of the price every time after. Done right, it can cut costs by 90% on long context workflows. If you're not using it, you're probably overpaying. Evals, short for evaluations. How you actually measure if a model, prompt, or agent is working. You build a test set of inputs and expected outcomes, run your system against it, score the results. Anyone shipping anything serious is running evals. The word is everywhere now because I tried it a few times and it seemed fine. Doesn't survive contact with real users. Guardrails, the safety and policy layer that filters what an agent or chatbot will say or do. Distinct from the model's own training, you bolt guardrails on top, block these topics, don't share PII, never recommend competitors. If you're building a customer-facing AI product, you need them. 5 clusters, the model itself, what you're actually talking to the model, tokens, context window, statelessness, memory and knowledge, memory, RAG, context engineering, agents, harness, loop, MCP, the whole 2026 frontier, the builder stack, vibe coding, evals, caching, the operational reality of shipping. If you keep 3 terms from this entire video, context window, RAG, and agent harness, you will understand 80% of every AI conversation that's happening right now.